And I want to talk a little bit about swatching, which I know everybody loves. And I said today I would talk about the Indian tangled swatches and um, the pattern tailor. So the pattern tailor actually needs swatch information from you. I'm debating whether I should turn on my light. I think I'll just go ahead without it. Um, and so you do have to swatch for most of the things that it does. You can always not swatch, which is always an option, but then I can't guarantee that you're going to get the numbers that you need. So, um, anyhow, I love to swatch. I think swatching is so fun because you get to see like what something's going to look like. And so this is what I call a garment swatch. So this is for a particular garment shape. Um, and I know it's going to have a scoop neck and a shaped shoulder. And so I just want to see how that curve is going to come out. So I usually do my swatch. This one has bottom trim on it. And you can see I did a pretty big swatch. I have a ruler here. It's like 8 inches wide. And from bottom to the top of the shoulder, it's also 8 inches. So this is a silk cotton, no, silk linen blend. And maybe it's cotton. So I know that it's going to flatten out. And less flattening here because I've got this cable pattern but it's also got garter in it. Actually it's reverse stockinette. But this is going to spread out. And I have these two swatches, which are different stitches, but so this one hasn't been blocked. And you can see that it looks, I don't know, I always call it crunchier. It's not as soft. And then here's one, the same stitch patterns, but it's been wet blocked and steam blocked. And so it's got like the drape that I would expect from the silk blend. This one doesn't have that drape yet. I mean, it's got some, but not kind of what I would want it to be. I love the stitch definition here. And you can see that it's really, how can I do this? Flattened. The stitches out. This is a seated chevron. I'm going to see if, let's see, I'm going to switch the camera. You can see my cute little lilac. And now I'm going to turn it so it can focus in on the swatch. I'm using a different tripod today because I wanted to be able to get in. Iris, I always wet and steam block. I love that kind of finished look that I get by steam blocking. And, just so you know what kind of a crazy person I am, I iron my t-shirts. So, it's not required, but I like the way it looks. So this is the blocked swatch. The seed up here obviously has gotten wider. Well, you can't actually see that. There you go. It has gotten wider because seed stitch flattens out a lot. So then this down here it's actually a really lovely pattern to knit. So you go purl 1, knit 1 all the way across on the right side, and on the back side you go purl 3, knit 3 across. So it's really easy. It gives you all this seed texture, which I love. I will admit, it's kind of lost in the way this is dyed, but to me, it's prettier than that, which we found out I'm not that big a fan of stockinette. I love texture, and I love kind of how this makes the color. It disrupts it more than it does in stockinette. And actually, it looks like I'm showing you the wrong side, although they're both the same for both of these stitches. I know what I want to do with this, so um, I will be proceeding with that at some point. So this is my little garment swatch, and um, you could see the cable better from this angle. It's another stitch that I just love because it's like super easy to remember. Um, and my goal in my knitting is always to kind of get to the point where I don't have to look at my pattern very much. Um, so that's how that looks. It again just breaks it up, makes it a little bit more interesting, but the cable is not so hard that I feel like I have to show it off. It's just there to make a better fabric for me. So now let's look at this thing. So this is 100% superwash, same stitch pattern. Um, and so that's what it looks like blocked. And here's if here it is that unblocked. So again, it's got a lot more texture. And one of the reasons I like to block is because if you were expecting that in your finished garment, I'm just holding it up so you can see how much dimension that has, and then how much less it has once it's been blocked. So, again, I think this is really pretty. Which means this is the right side. Um, even when it's flattened out. And here, it's really making this blue pop because you're getting just like every variation of the dye. Um, and I really like it. As you may or may not know, I'm not a big fan of blue. So this is an exercise of me doing what other people like instead of me doing what I want. Um, and, again, this has gotten pretty drapey, as you would expect with 100% merino. And what the label said, these are both from Oink Pigments, they're lovely people. Says it's 17 microns. I got to tell you, I know nothing about microns. But it's super yummy to knit. I've knit several samples just because I like knitting with it, and I didn't have to get up off the couch because I just kept using the same yarn. So here's a slightly different pattern in this yarn. Again, this has been blocked. This is the beginning. No, that's the end. Okay. So I guess I did a little. I usually use the other side, but I must have just started right off the bat. So here it is with an eyelet, which would show off much more if I didn't have all that yarn behind it. So again, really lovely use of the color. This is an in the round swatch. And not only do these usually create like super ugly edges there, but they're kind of a pain in the ass. But for those of us who do knit differently, and mine's like not huge, But the difference, but I like to do an in the round swatch. I realize it's kind of excessive. I've just got all kinds of swatches in this. So here's just plain stockinette. I mean, it's nice. There's nothing wrong with it. Just not my thing. And here's, oh, this is just a variation. I know which pattern I took this from. So it's a 1x1 rib and then this eyelet pattern. And look at how it scallops because of the lace. Love that. Now here's another couple of swatches. This one has been blocked. I'm not sure I was consistent. That's one of the problems I have with cables is like keeping track of the number of rows. And so I love this and I wanted it to kind of flare at the bottom. So I actually pulled it out a little bit when I was blocking it. And I think this here was like a flub in the yarn. Well, it looks like I may have done seed stitch by accident too, but I love anything like that, like any little imperfection. I love this. But so I love this pattern and how it looks. And you could block it out so it showed the cabling more. It's kind of a pain in the neck to do. It's one stitch cables to the right, one stitch cables to the left, and behind it are 3 purl stitches. So I don't cable with the needle. And it was hard to find the right rhythm. But once I got it, they were delightful. So here it is, unblocked. And you have to stretch it out to see. It looks just kind of lumpy here. And again, so this one is pretty stiff because of the rib. And then once you've blocked it, it really loosens up. Sorry about that. So that's why I block. And what you get with the steam blocking iris is it kind of smooths this surface here. So I always block with the right side facing down. And when I steam block, I just put it on the counter in my laundry room and I hover the iron over it and I shoot steam into it. So I'm never pressing down on it. And then I go in and like I said, I wanted to spread it here. So I would just open that up a little bit. And because of all the moisture that the steaming creates on my counter, I can move this apart and it will stay. And it will just shrink in as much as it's going to. So I'm really trying to find out what the fiber is going to do in the end. So like if I blocked this out, I would have to probably block it every time I washed it because that's not really what this yarn wants to do. I could probably keep it out a little bit, but remember our garments are always hanging on us, so they're going to go into their natural state. So those are my oink swatches. This pink yarn is called Gild, Gyld, and this blue is called Mystic. And they're both lovely yarns. So then let me get to my other swatches. I was going to do it in alphabetical order, but it looks like I'll just do them in the order that I picked them up. So this was just a small, number of yards. So I knitted a little swatch and I did everything. And I can never remember whether it's called double seed or moss stitch, but it's, you knit seed stitch for 2 rows and then you switch. So I call it lichen stitch because I can't remember what the real one is. So this is a beautiful yarn. And let's see, what is the fiber? So this is 100% merino Rambles. So it's superwash, but not superwash treated. And I think it's got like a lovely texture. And look at how evenly my pearls and my knits sit in this. Really nice. It's called from a place called Queen City Yarn. Never heard of them. I'll know more after H&H because we're in nearby booths. And then this one is called Coleman. I've got these all tied together for H&H. And I love this yarn. I'll be trying to talk her out of one of those. So it's 35% linen and 65% silk. And it's 245 yards, so it's DK. Again, really nice stitch definition, but you can really see the sheen of the silk in that. And so it's very much like Guild, but it seems like it's got a little bit more sheen, but it could be just because it's a solid dye. Okay. I'm just grabbing things now. This is from a company called Junie and C. And Snoqualmie, Washington is north of where I am. And Junie and C are her granddaughter's names. So, which I think well explains this speckled yarn. All of these sock yarns I had to knit on size 2, 2.75 millimeters. And I got really tired of knitting these pieces on the same size of yarn. I did this little WPI, which I often do to see like how many wraps there are per inch. So this one is 16. I didn't have yarn to do that with the other one. I frankly am quite a fan of speckled yarn, but the pink is not kind of a pink I love. So let's look at right now. There it is. Okay, so this is, I suspect, the same base. She doesn't say what her base is for Junie and C. But I just love this with the natural colored background. The bases all look and knit the same, which is a little disappointing. And she's from Salt Lake, Utah. This is a 75 superwash 25 nylon. And just had a brain spasm there. But I really like this. And it seemed like a little less limited in terms of usage with the neutral background. This one was I did get a complaint about it not being blocked in the photo, that it looked sloppy, but so here is again the same lichen stitch. This is a bulky yarn. I knit this on a size 9, which is quite large. I don't usually knit that big anymore, but it was yummy to knit with. It is superwash merino. And I loved just, you can't see it so well here, but like here, there's some the pearls look darker than the stockinette. It's really quite lovely. And so that was only one of the big, I've got two tied together here. So these are from Treasure Goddess yarn. And you cannot believe how green this green is. The screen is taking like 25% of the saturation out of it. Again, a sock yarn. This one has yak in it. So it's merino, yak, and nylon fingering sock yarn. Again, knit on those size 2. It and this Lovejoy seemed like they were particularly thin, but this one knit really beautifully. I really liked it. And then her other yarn, this is called Bamboo Linen Treasure. And this was probably the one that people most saw themselves wearing. It's just a, nearly solid turquoise bamboo and silk and linen fingering weight. And again, it was really lovely to knit. There you have it. But I think everybody who commented felt like it would be perfect for a summer top. So here's one. Again, I've got 3 tied together. So getting the right side. Okay, so this is called, what is it called? Slub, 1 ply. And I love the texture of it. And when you hold it up, you can see it would, again, make a really great, simple top. No need to have done the seeds or the lichen stitch because you can't see it. Up here, you can see what it looks like in reverse stockinette. Not incredibly interesting in stockinette. Anything with slubs and texture usually looks better in reverse stockinette. So I would probably do seed stitch for this, which I love to do seed stitch. I understand most people don't, because it would be easier to keep track of which row. So then when I have to do 2 rows before I change, seriously, I am kind of a lazy knitter. And so here's another one from the same company. It's called Barn Yarn. Did you get that in there? And they sent 3 little mini skeins. So here I did a wraps per inch, but apparently I didn't count them. And I think I didn't have any left over of the slub, so I didn't do that. Just fucking gorgeous. The color, again, is getting way washed out. It's more like a Bing cherry color than the kind of grape that it appears on the screen. Those darn size 2 needles and yeah, same merino nylon blend. It does look nice in the stockinette. It knit up really beautifully. So this one was, again, a crowd favorite. Super wash, but worsted. And you can see it is knits really evenly. You get just enough texture in here to make the color interesting. This one was 13 wraps per inch. The socks tend to be like, I'd say 15 to 19. So barn yarn, loved that I got 3. Uh, so now we're back to, this is a little less speckly and, but kind of the same thing. I did not like this color. I found it really unappealing. And that's just me personally. Same old yarn that everybody's using. It's 17 wraps per inch. Um, I'm not a sock knitter, so, you don't have to listen to me at all. It would make great socks for, just color or um, for a child. Uh, this was one of my favorites. I'm going to button knots knotted together. So this, I've got a yarn that I bought from this company. They're called Sea Change. And she's looking and is interested in sustainability. So this is called Litoral Fingering, and it's Falklands Merino. So not superwash. You can see it's got great stitch definition. Again, knits up really evenly in stockinette, although you can see the lines from the color changes. Again, apparently I was busy wrapping and did not actually count the wraps per inch. So what I do is and it looks like I need to add one on here, a wrap. So I wrap it as loosely as I can on one side, and then I count down here so I can spread them apart. But it really looks like I need to put one more wrap on. And, I think for weaving, wraps per inch is really important. Um, I think it's up in the air whether it's important for knitters or not. It depends on who you talk to. I had a guy quit doing business with me because I wouldn't put wraps per inch in my patterns. Um, an asshole. This is from a place called Townhouse Yarns, which I'd not ever heard of. But so I love this yarn. It's 21 wraps per inch. It's single ply, and people did not like it unblocked. I think it really rose to the occasion being blocked. And, it would, of course, look different in a bigger piece. But I really liked it. I am always worried about using single ply because of pilling. Um, so that's my swatch collection for today. And uh, so anybody want to say anything? I'm going to switch this back to me. There I am. You just got a great shot of my neckline, which is not your best look at my age. And this little tripod thingy, yeah, it's great for traveling, but it's kind of funky. Okay, so I'm getting ready for H&H, and I'm going to switch again. That is what I've been working on, how to get everything into my suitcases. And of course, I don't want to pack everything too soon because I don't want it to get all wrinkled and crushed. The airline will do that for me. But Mitch had that great big duffel, which I can just get my 2 banners in and I've got my 2 dress forms in. I padded one out so before she had almost a 19-inch bust line. I've had her for probably 20 years. I've got a new one. She's got a less pronounced bust line. And they're basically half size of a size 10. Um, and so I took the old one. They are both called Dolly, named by someone else. So I took Dolly 1 and I took a bunch of batting and some paper tape, and I padded her out to have a 22-inch chest and hips that are 26. So that would be 44 and 52. And padded out her waist, and kind of padded her like up through here and across the back. I still have to pad the arms. I didn't realize I had 2 sets, so I've got another set. Maybe I'll do that tonight. And it was really, so I don't like doing crafts. I'm really, not a craft person. So I'm sitting there with tape and wrapping her and cutting pieces of batting and padding out various areas. And then I made like a tube out of a knit that with some lycra in it that I could put over the whole thing so that everything would stay where I wanted it. And I'd put tape like under her boobs so that her bust line was more defined. And then I padded more into her butt. And she looked and I put in like a nice belly pad too. And she looked really real. So I'm quite taken with that. And then I had to hand stitch darts in it because I sewed the back seam with my sewing machine, but I didn't think I could do darts well in a lycra knit. So I sewed them by hand one night while watching TV. And so mostly I'm going to the Pattern Tailor to talk about sizing and inclusion, which are passions of mine, but also to talk about the Pattern Tailor. And so the Pattern Tailor, for those of you who don't know, is something I dreamed up. I used to teach grading classes on how you get multiple sizes from one, and you do it all in the Excel. And it's quite involved. I am quite technical about how I grade, and I look at like every part of the body and grade it according to how the body might actually change as it changes size. So I'm looking like what happens if somebody is getting smaller, as well as what happens if somebody is getting bigger. So my workbooks are quite involved. And then Jamie worked with me for 3 years, and she was much better at Excel than I am because she's more logical than I am. So I have trouble with logic. I have to like write out what I want to do in English, and then I can kind of start to put together how to create the logic statements in Excel. But so her skill allowed me to take what I had essentially taught her and make it much more, address much more complicated things. And so we worked on that for a couple of years. And then, like, it turns out that Excel is pretty easy. There are two guys. Oh, they're waiting for me. So I stand here at 5 o'clock on Fridays. I'm just fascinated. So two guys with their coffee cups, and it turns out they've got a pug. So the parade stopped because he had to sniff our ivy, um, which distracted me. So the pattern tailor can now do things. Oh, so year 3 was spent me hiring someone to write PHP to do what I want it to do, and Jamie learning how to do it, and us taking the pattern tailor from being something that I could do in Excel, but couldn't really share with anybody because it's all my intellectual property in there. And Excel is really easy to break into. So I didn't want to use Excel. And after a lot of research, we found out that PHP was the thing we needed. Turns out it's really not that complicated to do for what I would need it for. But, it's computer programming. So everything is very specific. Well, for a girl who's not good at logic, this is a problem. So Jamie has moved on. She left lovely videos about how to do everything, of which I often miss the key point. And I have since had my VA transcribe them for me so that, giving me the high points so that I can read the instructions. And I had to learn how to do it because even though I invented it, or it was all done at my direction, I had not been doing the actual implementation. And in part, that was because I believe that if you give somebody a job to do, you let them do it and, allow them to fly. So Jamie was flying and I was doing other things because I didn't have to fight with Excel. So I've been kind of reacquainting myself with all of this, having to learn logic, having to memorize the tiny bits of the programming language that I have to implement, and then creating outputs in the pattern tailor. So the pattern tailor only operates on my website because that's how it accesses the PHP, is on my server. So, and it's dead stupid. So if you don't program it right, it doesn't work. So it turns out that when Owen set it up, like, first of all, he's British. Second of all, he, and I'm sure he and Jamie discussed what abbreviations they would use. But I am very particular about how I like things to look. And so I immediately went in and changed like all the YD to YDS and put a space before the M for meters and did the same thing with CM. Well, apparently that makes it not talk to the PHP. So in the places where it's actually discussing it with PHP, I have to use that language, not what I want. And then I have to program Excel to give me the YDS that I wanted to have. And so it took me a while to and almost drove myself crazy because I couldn't figure out like why everything was just how Jamie had set it up. And of course, by that time, I'd forgotten that I'd added in all those spaces and the S's and yards. So, fortunately, I'm always able to laugh at myself. And, it was only a couple of weeks of my life that I wasted. So now I'm much more careful about following the rules. And I actually have printed out a couple of spreadsheets to study so that I can see how Jamie did some things that are more complicated than I know how to do. Um, Although, I've memorized some cool logic statements, and I can actually create my own now. Um, so the things that I've been working on recently, I did get a pattern in. It's called Berkshire's Cowl, and it's sadly now packed. But the stitch pattern is this. And it's really a fun pattern to work on. I'm having a sample knitted um, in some merino and mohair, and I did not want to knit the mohair, so I'm paying somebody else to do it. And she's just over the moon with this pattern. And once I finally figured out my fuck ups in PHP and we got the pattern out, she really, really loved the pattern that she got out of the Pattern Tailor. And this is somebody who is a technophobe. So um, it is definitely awesome for anyone to do it. So I've created I'm going to have to look at my list. So we have the horizontal bust-headed dart, which you can put into any pattern you're knitting. So it doesn't have to be one of my patterns. And that's kind of what I'm focusing on, is creating things that people can use, kind of as they get there in their project. I'll have some more complicated things coming. But then have you ever wondered how much yarn to use for your long tail cast on? I now have a calculator that will tell you. Same for my flexible long tail cast on, which is a variation of the long tail. It makes this great stretchy beginning. I use it in almost everything. So it's just a variation of the long tail. It uses more yarn. So I've a calculator that will figure that out. I have one called the Yarn Remainder Finder, where you can take what's left of your yarn, put it on the scale, and based on the numbers from your ball band, I will tell you how much yarn you have left. I use that one a lot. And then the other one that I've gotten in there is called Time to Knit. So it actually is calculating how long it takes you to do a row, or, a pattern repeat, or however you want to do it. And it's just based on you timing yourself. And then you can tell the pattern tailor, which is really, you're just talking to me. Like, I have an area that's going to use that same number of stitches, and I've got to knit 14 inches. How long is it going to take me? And I will tell you. And you get a nice little output sheet that has all the numbers that you input. So you have those recorded someplace that you could actually put in a notebook or throw in your knitting bag. And then the numbers that the pattern tailor generates. So you have both. I'm kind of looking around to see if I have one close by, one of my output sheets, but I don't think I do. Or there's so much chaos over there that I would never find it. So the one I'm working on right now is called How Much Yarn. So it is so you can figure out how much yarn you need for your project based on your swatch. And, another reason why you need to have a swatch. There will be one coming. I have a second horizontal bust dart that's for a cardigan, but I got to get that set up. I have one that will do an evenly divide, and there will be 3 versions of it because it's too hard to do it all in one. And kind of given the scenario, you'll use one or the other. Um, Yarn consumption. So I have to play little games with myself when I'm knitting. So I always figure out how long it takes me to do stuff so that I can figure out how many nights it's going to take me to finish a section or a project. And then I like to see how much yarn I'm using. And I do not play yarn chicken. I hate it. I do play it sometimes, but that's not my goal is to not play it. So um, I am working on a calculator for that. I've got one for vertical darts, but um, just writing the pattern is, again, I think I need to make it simpler and to have different variations. Um, and then I've got one for when you do an in the round swatch and you have all this yarn on the back, well, you can't calculate how much yarn you're going to use without getting rid of this yarn. So it takes the dimensions of your swatch and the length of these floats and will tell you how much yarn you actually used in your swatch. I can do it in 2 colors. And how much you'll need to make your project. I've got one for JSSBO and for just a regular bind off. I think I haven't pulled the trigger on them yet. And then I now have 3 cowls, and there's Berkshires, there's Leon Triboulet, and Path to Maori. And I would show you samples, but all of them are packed. So that's what's going on here. I leave bright and early on Tuesday morning to fly to Rosemont, Illinois, which is, I just describe it as it's a suburb of O'Hare. I mean, it's not even close to Chicago. So that's where a ladybug, a yellow one. That's where I will be. Hey, Cynthia. Next week. I get there on Tuesday. I have to create my booth and be ready to be on the show floor on Wednesday morning. And then it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then I'm spending an extra day because I'm pretty sure I'll be exhausted. You may or may not know that I'm an introvert. So having to go out and sell myself is not the easiest thing for me. But it is now 5:00. Mitch has not turned off the music in the system yet, but we are probably just minutes from the music hour, which has become literally my favorite part of the day. I sit down at the dining room table and I clean up just all of my work loose ends. And then, so on Mondays and Fridays, it's 90 minutes instead of an hour. And he plays LPs. So he's got like 12 linear feet of LPs. That's a lot of fucking LPs, let me tell you. And we've started buying new ones. So a couple of years ago, I convinced him when his turntable decided to die. And it was he got that at the beginning of our relationship. So that was like 40 years ago. And so I'm trying to read Iris's note, but I'll catch that later. He now buys new LPs because our music taste has changed. And last night he pulled out something that was probably 36, 37 years old. And I need to ask him, did he just think of it or did he see it? I don't know. But he plays lovely music. And then tonight I will have my martini. because it's Friday. So have a wonderful weekend. I hope your weather has been improving as ours has. And I'm going to sign off. Bye bye. Oh, I will be doing lives from the show, and I will just put them up um, when I get the edited video. But if you've ever wondered what it's like at a trade show, I will be there to tell you. Thanks for coming by.